I don't settle lawsuits, very rare. Because once you settle lawsuits, everybody sues you. Very simple. It's like business. I teach it. I don't settle lawsuits.
He doesn't settle. That is until he does. Now, the most recent example is, of course, Trump University. Back in February, Donald Trump settled that fraud case to the tune of $25 million. Students of the now defunct school said they paid tens of thousands of dollars to learn Trump's secrets to getting rich with real estate. But instead, they got a bunch of broken promises. They were supposed to meet Trump, never did. They claimed the instructors unqualified, and the secrets to success were just tips they could have just found on the internet as easily. The then New York Attorney General, he called the whole thing a sham. Well, there's a new book out called Trump U, The Inside Story, and it's written by someone who actually worked there. I recently sat down with author Stephen Gilpin. You know, it's interesting, obviously, your perspective with a lot of the headlines today, but first of all, let's try and remind people not just what happened at Trump University, but who it happened to. Describe the typical student that enrolled at Trump University. We're not talking about some rich college-age kid here, by and large. We're talking about people in the second chapter of their life, a lot of people who pretty much poured their life savings into this tuition, right?
Absolutely. So the average student wasn't the college student, the 20, 30-year-olds. The average student was, 40, 50, 60 retirees in most cases who wanted to better themselves and make money in real estate.
And a lot of these people, they put their life savings into this, right? They maxed out credit cards, et cetera.
So a lot of them were upsold into a $30-some-thousand package, $35,000 or greater package. They actually either maxed out their credit cards or raised their credit limits to get the package, or they actually took out and invested in their retirement. So could you imagine investing $35,000 on a credit card at 18-point-some% interest back then? That's ridiculous. That's insane.
And what they thought they were getting was the Trump brand, that they were going to go to a place, they were going to learn all the inside secrets, and they were going to have professionals teach them, how to navigate real estate and make $1 million doing it, right? And that, in fact, was the promise that Trump put right there in the introductory materials for these people.
It was the ads in newspapers. Invest like Donald Trump. You could, too, also be a multimillionaire, just like Donald Trump. But, yeah, absolutely. What they did is all the ads on TV, YouTube, social media, they actually pushed hard. And it was a hard sales pitch to get the people at these classes and these retreats to upsell them into these, it was high-pressured sales, upsell them into these huge packages. They ranged from $9,000 to $30-some-thousand, yeah.
So you get into it, and you quickly started hearing stories about and getting calls from people that you had mentored, and they're coming back with students, exactly, with what they're hearing at some of these Trump U live events, and you were concerned because they were getting literally illegal advice, right?
It was illegal advice. So and I'll give you an example. So if you're in the state of Delaware, in the state of Delaware, in 2008, 2010, there was a real estate federal law passed, is Cash for Keys, and it's called Theft of Equity Act. You can't go there and knock on somebody's door and take cash for keys and talk them out of their property because, we have to realize at the time I started at Trump University, the real estate market was crashing. It didn't crash yet, but it was on its verge of crashing. So you can't teach that. It's illegal. And the only way I knew this is because I would receive the phone call from the student explaining to me that they were trying to get this transaction approved and do this transaction, and they needed somebody to walk them through the process. And I'd be like, well, wait a minute, where did you hear that from? You can't do that. That's illegal. What are you doing? And that's when I was stunned and was like, who taught you that? I wanted to know the name of the person who actually spoke to you and taught you that. I learned it at this creative financing event in Arizona or Texas. And I'm like, whoa, somebody's got to go out there and be the compliance auditor, because you have to realize if you're selling, you're selling. But these people are coming across as real estate experts, and they're not. And when you're doing that, that is sending out a very fraudulent and false impression.
And as you say in your book, a lot of the folks, it turns out, were not credentialed, should not have been in front of a classroom, or should not have been leading some of these live seminars. But the other thing we had heard, Stephen, was the premise behind this was students were going to get an education, the inside education as to how to really do terrific, obviously, in the real estate market. But when they went out on their own, part of the allure of this degree was that there was going to be somebody there with you, somebody who's going to be a constant resource for help. We've heard time and time again that just never materialized for a lot of folks, or people that did come really weren't qualified to be helping them in those stages, in the latter stages of an acquisition.
In some cases, it was. What they did is you had the hotline, so you got me on the other end of the phone line to walk you through the transaction if you were doing it on your own. Also, what you had was, it was called the 3-day in-field mentorship, where somebody would go out there who was qualified and who has actually done this. Now, in some cases, there was some qualified people, but a majority of them were just high-pressured salespeople walking them through that transaction.
When did you know this thing was a deck of cards here that was going to fall, that it was a big hustle?
A lot of people ask that. It was probably later on in my career that I started noticing it. I didn't really fully know how bad it was until the subpoena process, until I got subpoenaed and going through the questionings myself, and my whole life changed. That's when we really got into the brass tactics of it. I knew some of the salespeople were not ethical salespeople, and they weren't kosher, and they were teaching some things that were illegal. That I did know during the beginning, and that's why I was going to the live events to report back on what was said. We also recorded every live event we've ever done, which I'm surprised that was never used.
The book is Trump U, The Inside Story of Trump University. Stephen Gilpin. Stephen, I appreciate the time.
Thank you so much, sir. Have a great day.
And coming up next, a sneak peek at our Memorial Day special, Vietnam Reflections. We speak with veterans from our area, and they share their experiences with us.